The marina stretched out before me, like a painting I'd been dreaming about for weeks. After 3 grueling months working on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico, all I wanted was to see my 42-foot Sea Ray Sundancer gleaming in her slip at Harborview Marina. My baby, my pride and joy. The boat I'd saved for 7 years to buy. I pulled my truck into the parking lot just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Something felt off immediately. My slip, number 47, looked different from a distance. As I walked closer down the weathered wooden dock, my stomach dropped. My boat wasn't there. What the hell? I muttered, breaking into a jog. I reached my empty slip and stared at the dark water, where freedom's call should have been floating. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone to call the marina office. Harborview Marina, this is Beth speaking. Beth, it's Marcus Chun. I'm at slip 47 and my boat is gone. Was it moved for maintenance or something? There was a long pause. Mr. Chen, you're back early. We weren't expecting you until next week. I finished my rotation early. Where's my boat, Beth? Another pause, longer this time. I think you should speak with Diane Rothschild from the HOA. She came by with some paperwork about 3 weeks ago. I didn't let her finish. I knew exactly who Diane Rothschild was. She was the president of the Harborview Estates Homeowners Association, a woman who treated our waterfront community like her personal fiefdom. Every homeowner had stories about Diane's overreach, but I'd largely avoided her wrath by keeping to myself and following every ridiculous rule she'd ever conceived. Until now, apparently. I stormed toward the clubhouse, my duffel bag forgotten on the dock. Through the large windows, I could see a crowd gathered inside. Champagne flutes, people in cocktail attire, laughter echoing across the water. And there, holding court in the center of the room, was Diane Rothschild herself, wearing a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. I burst through the door, and the conversation died like someone had pulled a plug. Where's my boat? My voice cut through the silence like a knife. Diane turned slowly, her practiced smile faltering for just a moment before reassembling itself. Marcus, you're back early. We were just... Where is my boat? She set down her champagne glass with deliberate care. Now, Marcus, if you'll just calm down, I can explain everything. According to HOA Bylaw 47B, any vessel left unattended for more than 60 days without designated oversight can be temporarily requisitioned for community use. Requisition? You stole my boat. I didn't steal anything, Diane said, her voice sharp with indignation. I followed the rules. You were gone for 3 months. The boat was just sitting there and used. The HOA board voted to use it for today's annual sponsors cruise. We plan to have it back before you return next week. My blood pressure spiked so fast I saw spots. That's my property. You can't just, where is it right now? Out on the water, of course. Diane waved a dismissive hand toward the windows overlooking the bay. The cruise should be wrapping up any moment now. Really, Marcus, you're being quite dramatic about this. No harm has been done. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. We'll let the police decide that. The police? Diane laughed, an ugly sound. Do you have any idea how ridiculous you look? I have written authorization from the HOA board. I have precedent. I have... Her voice cut off as my phone connected. But before I could speak, someone burst through the clubhouse door behind me. Ms. Rothschild. It was Kevin, one of the younger marina staff members, his face flushed and sweating. We just got a call on the radio. The Coast Guard pulled over Freedom's call. The room went silent again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. Dangerous. What? Diane's composed mask cracked completely. Kevin swallowed hard. They're bringing the boat back now. There's a problem with who was operating it. I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. Let me guess. Whoever you put in charge of my boat doesn't have a captain's license, do they? Diane's face went pale. Susan has been operating boats for 20 years. Susan Hendricks? I knew Susan. Nice woman. Rich husband. Liked to motor around the bay in their little center console. Does Susan have documentation to operate a vessel over 40 feet? Does she have her OUPV license? Because my boat requires both. The color drained completely from Diane's face. 15 minutes later, we stood on the dock as the Coast Guard vessel escorted my boat back to the marina. I could see a middle-aged woman at the helm. Susan, presumably looking like she wanted to die. A Coast Guard officer stood beside her, and even from a distance, I could see the rigid set of his shoulders. The Freedom's call glided into the slip with the Coast Guard boat alongside. As soon as they were secured, the officer, Lieutenant Morrison, according to his name tag, stepped onto the dock with a clipboard and a deeply unpleasant expression. Who is the registered owner of this vessel? I am, I said, stepping forward. Marcus Chun. Mr. Chun, are you aware that your boat was being operated without proper licensing? No, sir. I just got back into town and discovered it had been taken without my permission. Lieutenant Morrison's eyes shifted to Diane, who looked like she was trying to become invisible. And you are? Diane Rothschild. I'm the president of the Harborview Estates HOA. There's been a misunderstanding. Ma'am, operating a vessel of this size without proper certification is a federal violation. Were you aware that Ms. Hendricks doesn't hold a required license? I assumed. You assumed wrong. Lieutenant Morrison's voice could have frozen the bay. Additionally, we observed alcohol being served on board while underway, with no licensed captain present. Do you understand the liability issues here? Susan Hendricks climbed shakily onto the dock. Her cocktail dress wilted and stained. Diane, you told me it was fine. You said you had permission. You said, "Be quiet, Susan," Diane hissed. No. Susan's voice broke. I'm not taking the fall for this. You told me the owner had agreed. You said he'd given permission for community use. You lied. I watched Diane's empire crumble in real time. Around us, the HOA members who'd been at the party began backing away, distancing themselves from their president. Lieutenant Morrison spent the next hour documenting everything. By the time he was done, Susan had been issued a citation for operating without proper certification, and Diane was facing potential criminal charges for unauthorized use of a vessel. The HOA, he informed them, would be investigated for their requisition policy, which he noted was almost certainly illegal. As the Coast Guard vessel departed, I stood on the dock beside my boat, running my hands over the hull to check for damage. My phone buzzed, a text from Beth at the marina office. The HOA board just had an emergency meeting. Diane resigned. They want to speak with you about compensation. I looked at the Freedom's call, then at the clubhouse where Diane sat alone at a table, her white pantsuit no longer quite so pristine. Her empire of petty tyranny collapsed around her.